This podcast is intended for mature audiences and contains adult language and subject matter. Listeners, please be advised.
Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of Drinking with Your Ex. I am Blake Thompson.
And I am Bonnie Neal. And this is our podcast. Blake and I started this podcast as a way to inflict ourselves on the public. Thank you very much. But we are exes. We dated back around the turn of the century and now find ourselves friends. And over 40, Blake is about to hit 50. And
23 years ago.
I don't want to get into the maths of things. We are both over 40 and still single. And if you've been paying any attention to any of the previous episodes, that's not so much of a mystery no more.
There's no mystery to why we were both single. It's pretty clear. You get it, but you keep coming back because you just enjoy the train crash. We love you. All right. So this podcast has 3 rules. Blake, what's the first rule? The first rule, each episode based on topic is inspired by a cocktail and or liquor of choice.
Yes, and the second rule is that we each get to introduce the other, thus engaging in the timeless edge play of having your ex introduce you to the world.
While they stare at you.
Yes. Good, clean American fun.
Yeah, and the third rule is, based on the topic, each one of us gets to ask the other an uncomfortable question.
And there's no backseas. There's no confronting a friend. You must answer. And if somebody wiggles out of it, you get to ask follow-up uncomfortable questions.
Yeah, exactly. And Bonnie is a big fan of the follow-up questions if she thinks I'm not uncomfortable enough.
I mean, interrogation tactics is part of my love language.
Yes. Gentlemen, this is how she flirts. FYI, run.
Some people like it. Law enforcement role-playing is kind of a kink. It's fine. Anyway, so this week's episode is called Maybe You Should Talk to Somebody. How to introduce going to therapy in a relationship. How to say to your partner, I think maybe you should go to therapy. How to hear your partner say to you, maybe you should see someone, and maybe how to introduce couples counseling into a relationship and all these other fun things.
Because everyone should have that one objective human being to talk to.
That's not your mom. Your mom's not objective. Anyway, let's just move forward. So this, this episode is inspired by
the classic cocktail, gin and tonic, because everyone needs a standby.
Yes, and like therapy, a gin and tonic is a standard, and you should at least have one in your life. Is my firm opinion. So there you go.
If you haven't had a gin and tonic yet, highly recommend it.
Yeah. You're missing out on a pretty basic experience. It's fun. And, everybody likes quinine. Introduction.
Bonnie wants to go first because she said she had a good one.
Fuck, I forgot what it was now. I did have a good one. I had a nice one. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this is Blake Matthew Thompson.
Oh, God, the full name thing again. Jesus.
Who recently introduced me once again to his favorite new Irish pub in Austin, Texas called Kelly's. And today he was raving about something that he wanted to bathe in / drink, which is the curry sauce one can order with potato fries, also known as chips in the Irish lingo world. And I must say, I had the chips with curry sauce, and I'm here to say that was fucking awesome. So Blake Thompson, ladies and gentlemen, always respect his recommendations when it comes to Irish pub food.
Why, thank you. That was really thoughtful.
I'm so fucking nice. Thanks for noticing.
And let me introduce my ex of many years ago, Bonnie Neal. Bonnie, who is chasing middle age, decided to start looking at changing her hair color, ladies and gentlemen. She's going back to blonde because, blondes have more fun.
Really? That's it? That's the best you got? That's the best you could come up with blondes have more fun? All right, it's fine.
It's okay. I didn't want to mention that covering up the gray hair that you were so panicky over the other day.
Excuse me, there is no gray hair. I made the exact same deal with the devil my mother did. There will never be gray hair. I sacrificed a baby chicken. And you know what? Satan keeps his promises. But it's true. I am dyeing my hair blonde. I'm going back blonde. I didn't want Texas to take blonde from me. And Blake said, yeah, it's your midlife crisis. And I'm like, yeah, but it's cheaper than a trophy wife and a Camaro.
Yeah, I'm still looking at the Camaro, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. And that trophy wife. But there you go. Are you done with your, snarky yet still underwhelming introduction?
Underwhelming. Oh, I'm so sorry. Should I play to your ego today?
You can't give it away, Blake. You can't give it away. Ladies and gentlemen, we settled on a really awesome topic for our last episode, and we've just been giggling about it ever since. But stay tuned. It's going to be magical, wonderful. But Blake, stop it. You can't give it away.
Yes, it's going to be hilarious, and boy, are we going to be lit for it.
In a shocking turn of events, yes. Anyway, let's just let's just dive into this.
Dive into it. So introducing therapy into a relationship. This could be thin ice edge play for a lot of people.
It seems really aggressive. It seems like something that it can and has been fairly accusatory. Like, you need to go to fucking therapy, right? Nobody really responds well to that.
When you're sitting there, you need to go to therapy as you point your finger. No, of course not. No one's going to respond well.
I mean, is that wrong? Oh, yes, but obviously it's wrong. But, some relationship, we were talking about this today and I was like, yes, I can imagine a very humane way in which one can recommend therapy both to their partner or have their partner recommend it to yourself, where we're just trying to kind of figure out how to talk about therapy without it being a pejorative, right? Without it kind of being like a punishment or a judgmental statement on one's life, right? Like a gin and tonic, therapy should be fairly standard and basic, and you can go to it. And
yeah, Bonnie and I are both big fans of therapy, as you know. We're both pushers.
We are. I've been definitely accused of being a therapy pusher, which is frankly more expensive than most drugs. But okay, so introducing therapy into a relationship or telling, I think we need to dial it back, right? Let's just kind of come back a little bit and let's just talk about what therapy is, because that is a question we get a lot from our listeners. They come to us with questions about therapy, how to get a therapist. This podcast weirdly it started out as dating over 40 and turned into, kind of a long treatise on therapy.
That's right.
Yeah.
As you know, we also give shout outs to the Sims Foundation.
Yes, which you should definitely donate to, which provides mental health care to Austin musicians and their families. thesimsfoundation.org. Please donate. Okay. And Blake is a therapist. We're talking about therapy, so there is a therapy theme. But the advice, what is therapy, right?
Well, it's the action of sitting in a room with a licensed clinician of some type. It could be a counselor, social worker, a psychologist, psychiatrist, what have you. But you're initiating a narrative discussion about your mental health and the challenges that you may be going through.
Right. And therapy can be short-term, medium-term, long-term.
Mm-hmm.
There are, oh my God, I feel like there's like 1,000 different modalities to therapy.
We could sit there and go through all the ones and we would bore you to tears, like cognitive behavioral, dialectical.
Yada, yada, yada. Honestly, I think that's sometimes that happens amongst therapists, is that when they're talking to somebody who's new to therapy, they do sometimes fall into jargon, which I think is not remarkably useful. If you want to find a therapist, this is the key to it is to just keep at it, right? Start with referrals. Start with if you have friends, who know, friends who are in therapy, ask for referrals from theirs.
Yeah.
Look at your insurance. Texas is weird in that in many ways, the best therapists are no longer taking insurance because Texas mental health care is fucking medieval as fuck.
And also, there's one great tool out there. Bonnie and I have talked about Psychology Today. Psychology Today has an excellent tool called Find a Therapist.
Yeah, and it's actually
on their website. And you can break it down to the absolute ridiculous of what you're looking for in a therapist. Are you looking for, you could say, I'm looking for a female therapist that specializes in depression, anxiety, and substance use, and also identifies, as sex worker friendly or LGBTQ friendly, and takes Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Right. You can get very, very detailed, and you can kind of find, but my caution against very, very detailed in looking for a therapist is that, therapy, in a shocking turn of events, kind of took off during the pandemic. And a lot of therapists are busy. And, they had to survive the pandemic as well. If you're first called and the therapist is not taking new patients, please do not act like you just got stood up by your prom date. Just keep looking, right? Sure. Or if it is a therapist that has ticks all of your boxes and you really want to be with them, ask them if you can go on their waiting list. And they can reach out to you when they have a new patient opening, but keep at it. There is I don't believe when I have, and I do have several friends in my life, various different ages, genders, and presenting problems, who just swear that like they can't find a fucking therapist to save their life. And that is because they called 2 people. Those 2 people were not taking new patients, and they're just like, or those 2 people didn't call them back within the certain time period that they thought was respectful. And they're just like, I can't do it anymore. And I'm like, oh, you need to calm down.
Well,
Calm
yeah,
down.
and also dial back a bit. Like if you have a therapist that says, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not taking new clients, ask them for recommendations.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have colleagues out there that might have openings, especially because a lot of therapists, we travel in packs, ladies and gentlemen.
They do. They kind of stick together, especially the ones that sort of have similar modalities and philosophies about therapy. They know each other.
Yeah, and what we do, we make referrals to each other. Mm-hmm. And that's the easy part. You can find a therapist. You just need to know what you're looking for, and don't be afraid to ask questions to the therapist.
Well, okay, so, I mean, know what you're looking for, right? Like that, I mean, but if you've never been in therapy, how the fuck do you know what you're looking for? You're like, I say, like, think about every bad Hollywood cliche you've thought of and just sort of start there, maybe. I would say maybe sit down and write a list of the top 3 things that are making you want to go to therapy. It could be, I'm fighting in my relationship, right? Like me and my partner just keep fighting, right? Or, my partner just left me, right? That's a big thing. I don't like my job, right? I, don't like where I'm living. I'm angry and depressed all the time. I'm under court-ordered anger management treatment. I mean, just write it down and make a list.
Yeah. Or like I had bad things happen to me.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people don't sit there and use the jargon speak. No one's saying I'm depressed. I have anxiety.
Yeah, you don't have to
this,
self-diagnose yourself.
I have this. No one's self-diagnosing. People are going to say, it's like, I'm having periods of sadness. I'm frustrated. I'm stressed. Like I went through some really horrific experiences that I need to talk about, and I need to get this out because again, don't worry about diagnosing yourself, because most good therapists, especially if you're not running on insurance, aren't going to throw a diagnosis at you.
Because it's not remarkably useful. It's only useful for like the insurance companies. But
exactly.
But nobody is ever just one thing on DSM.
And also, you could just be going through something very basic for you. Mm-hmm. And there's not a need to go, I have to go get this diagnosis because da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because some people don't want that label.
And labels, again, not remarkably useful. Yes, so just make a basic list about what you're going for, and you do not, and you probably should not, emotionally vomit your entire life story on the first phone call.
No.
Nor the first meeting.
Sit there and have a list, give bullet points of what you want to talk about.
Yes.
And ask, okay, will you be able to work with me? Any therapist worth their salt will have either a consultation or a complimentary first episode.
First episode or first appointment?
First appointment.
If they are recording it against your will, that's a bad sign. But yes okay.
The first episode of therapy, ladies and gentlemen, yes, you're going to be on television.
or on a podcast that's released to like the wide world. Be great. But, ease into it. I think some of the people who they're seeking therapy when they're in such an acute crisis, right? That they're just desperate for help, and that's good, right? Knowing is half the battle, but there is also a process to build trust, and do not emotionally vomit your entire life story on the initial phone call.
You don't have to.
No, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, you let them know. It's like I'm having these experiences.
Yeah, and I kind of need somebody quick. Need somebody good.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a big fan of Psychology Today, because you can sit there and read the bio of the individual that you're looking at and see, okay, this person might be a good fit. You can email them. And also Psychology Today verifies credentials, everyone.
Oh, that's good. So and they would verify it with like what, the state agencies or something?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Fancy.
Yeah.
So you're not getting somebody who's like the Phoenix University approach to.
Yes, or someone goes, "Hi, I'm your life coach, ladies and gentlemen. I have no schooling in this, but I'm going to sit there and help you with your mental health and your challenges. Thanks."
So I love that there's just like this ongoing feud throwdown between life coaches and therapists. I understand it, and I'm not really wanting to get into it, but it is like the taxi cabs and like the bicycle messengers throwdowns of New York City. It's like, wow, I didn't realize this was to the death. Got it.
But Again, this is like if you're seeking yourself. Now, let's broach the topic of introducing to a said partner or loved one that you might want to recommend therapy to them.
All right. So I have done this a few times, and I would say, based on my personal experience, don't do what I did. Because every friend or relationship that I've ever said, I think you need to go to therapy, has ceased talking to me almost immediately. Not permanently all the time, but apparently like how I delivered it was in a aggressive pushing them away method as opposed to kind and considerate and compassionate way. So don't do it the way I do, because usually I'm like, dude, you are not dealing with your fucking shit. You need to go to fucking therapy because what's happening right now is not okay.
Bonnie throws down on this. I've experienced it firsthand.
Blake being one of the people where I'm like, you need to go to fucking therapy. And then we cease to talk for a while.
And then when we started talking, FYI, before you even move forward, I am going to therapy.
No, that was your opening line. I was like, excellent. Okay, well, I'm listening. It's not that I would totally have deleted your text, but I like that was your opening line. Yes.
I figured it was a good opening line and a way to move back into our relationship.
Because, definitely something I threw down. And I'm not unusual. This is not just me who kind of yells the therapy ultimatum. I have a very good friend of mine, and her husband, she tells the story, and so does he. She says that, he was a really shitty boyfriend. Like, he was an absolutely horrible boyfriend, but he's been a really great husband. And usually those two things do not go together. And I was like, okay, what happened? And she's like, he was a really shitty boyfriend, and he was kind of abusive and cheated. And, there was a lot of, lied. And she was like, I'm done. And he was like, well, wait a minute. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, I want to come back. And her insistence on him coming back was he needed to go to therapy because he needed to deal with some of the shit that was causing him to kind of continuously sabotage relationships.
Okay.
And she is the best thing that ever happened to him, and she loves him, and he was treating her like shit, right? As a way to push away something that was good. And she's like, you gotta get a handle on this, because no, I'm not dealing with it, but I do love you. And she says this and he says this, that it is a kind of condition of them remaining married is that he does remain in therapy. And he's so funny because he's so fucking proud about it now. And he's been on the Facebook group a few times, and he's just totally talked trash about men who won't go to fucking therapy now. And now he's like, go and do it, gentlemen. It's not that fucking hard. And I'm like, oh yes, because it does. Maybe it does give you a sense of smugness. I'm not sure.
One of my specialties is working with men that are adverse to therapy.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right now, currently, the majority of my clients are men.
Well, and they're not in therapy perhaps willingly. They're in therapy. Why? I mean, if they're adverse to therapy, how do they wind up in your office?
Well, it's usually recommended for their treatment. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, I work for an agency that specializes in head injuries, traumatic brain injury, strokes, and what have you, and how it affects your mental health. And I work with teams of therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, and whatnot. And when we are setting up their treatment plan, recommendations are made from their prescribing doctors and their insurance companies of what exactly they need to recover.
And so mental health therapy is part of their recovery.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So I assume most of these men, this is the first time they've ever been in therapy.
Yes. Most of these men have never been in therapy, have never walked into a therapist's office and said, hi, I am challenged with insert said something here.
Do they even do that at the first meeting of you, or?
They look at me like my head's on fire and think I'm going to psychoanalyze them for the first 10 minutes.
Are you?
Well, yes, but...
All right. So just because you're paranoid doesn't mean people aren't talking about you, but okay, go ahead.
Joking aside, no, it's like I do not psychoanalyze you in the first 10 minutes of meeting you. Basically, I have a conversation with you, see what your challenges are, and then we move from there.
Okay. What would you say is their main adversity or like main complaint against therapy? Like why are they therapy adverse?
Most of them come from generations and or families or cultures. You don't talk about anything.
The wasp stoicism.
Yes, it's like, it's John Wayne time. I'm going to rub some dirt on it and everything's fine. This is why I have heart disease at 50 and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, just walk off that emotional trauma. Just walk it off, Daisy.
Yes, exactly. And they soon realize, like as I work with them, like talking through them, I said, there's nothing There's nothing unmanly about this. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You have challenges. You've been through some shit. It's okay to let it out. Because if you're carrying it in your head and your chest, guess what?
Dead of heart disease at 58.
Yeah, stress kills.
Yeah.
Untreated mental health issues can kill too.
Yeah, they can. I mean, and that's I think why I become a therapy pusher, especially the older I get, because this shit will kill you. And we're all getting to the point where there's so many other things that will kill you. Why don't you get rid of the stuff that's been dragging you down since you were a child and wait for the new and exciting stuff that's going to kill you, right? Why let the bastards win, And
yeah, we just went through a pandemic, and a lot of us realized life is way too fucking short, especially if you're carrying around stuff. Everyone has a bucket in the back of their head they're carrying things in. They compartmentalize an emotion they have during the day. Say they get angry about something, say they're sad about something, say they're grieving over the loss of a friend or family member, and they don't deal with it at the time. I don't have time for that shit. I want to throw it in the bucket.
Or the U-Haul. I like to call it a U-Haul.
Yeah. And some days that U-Haul wrecks, someday that bucket spills. And you find yourself walking through the grocery store in the frozen food aisle with a bag of peas on your face sobbing. And I wish that was a joke.
Well, that sounds very specific. Is that something that happened to you?
No, it's not particularly me, but something someone told me.
That they started crying in the grocery store with a bag of peas on their face because they were in an accident, they hit themselves, or?
No, they just all of a sudden.
Started crying in the frozen pea section and just couldn't stop.
Yeah, because they had something triggered an emotional response, and all of a sudden that bucket tipped over and they couldn't stop.
So I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when you and I first met and you were vibrating at sounds only dogs could hear because you were so freaking stressed out about coming out of being an undercover narcotics officer.
Bonnie's favorite story.
We were talking about therapy, and we were talking about kind of, dealing with shit, and we were talking about like demons, right? And sometimes when you're dealing with stuff, it feels like you're fighting demons, and it's better to just face them and fight them because you can run, but you'll just die tired.
Exactly.
And those demons can always run faster than you. And they're not nearly as scary as you think they are once you face them. But that is where a therapist comes in because you don't have to face them alone, right?
Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast, if you're talking to a loved one or a family member, they're not objective.
Right.
They want to fix you. They want to help you. They want to take care of you. And they're not equipped to.
Right.
And that's no fault of their own. So going to a therapist, you have that objective person in the room that wants to give you tools to help you get through your stuff.
So this is what I've always liked about therapy is because it is in many ways, and this is probably I think what a lot of people have problems with. And therapy is by definition the creation of an artificial relationship, right? The therapist-patient relationship is artificially intimate. It has very specific boundaries by design, right? And those boundaries include, a 45-minute hour, right? It starts and ends at the same time. It is a price, right? There is an agreement of a price and an exchange. And there's agreements about for that 45-minute hour, it is 100% the patients. They get to own it. They get to talk about it. We can talk about whatever the fuck they want, right? This is a moment.
Exactly.
I liked it because it has helped simulate parenting, right? I mean, this sounds a little kind of crazy, but I went through a lot of therapists, but once I finally got the recommendation to go to a therapist that specifically had trauma training, and the difference between trauma training and like kind of other therapy things, and Blake, please tell me if I'm talking out of my ass, but this is my understanding of it.
Yeah, go on.
Is that, trauma training is that when you're dealing with somebody who's gone through an awful lot of trauma, either childhood or, even PTSD, the first thing the therapist focuses on is boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries, because trauma is at its core a transgression of boundaries, right? And so you always focusing on with the patient, first things first, boundaries. And boundaries are, we start at a certain time, we end at a certain time. The price is this, you pay me like this, right? These are the boundaries on these things. I also like in trauma therapists, the therapist reveals very little personal information about themselves because the therapist gets to be a not blank slate, but in some ways a surrogate slate, right? That the therapist gets to serve a surrogate parent role, or at least that's what they've done for me, because I needed to have the sensation of having a parent that I didn't have to know shit about their lives, right? They just 100% paid attention to me. And that has been the useful thing about it. But it is an artificial relationship that is uncomfortable.
And like you're saying, it's like where any therapist worth their salt does not sit there and disclose a ton of information about themselves to a client.
So this is the thing that I think is the difference between Texas and New York. So in New York, I feel like that is just across the board. It is known that you should not know shit about your therapist, right? Your therapist reveals personal information sparingly, and that it is generally seen as a transgression, right, on some level. Whereas in Texas, I've come across a lot of therapists that think that that's just an antiquated, there we go, an antiquated idea, that they think that, the sharing of their personal stories and information is a way to relate to patients. And I run from them as if my hair is on fire.
You should run from them, because any therapist that's talking about themselves in a therapy session is making the session about themselves and not about the client. And I'll die on this hill.
I will too, but I have friends, very good friends who have very, what I consider badly boundaried, intimate relationships with their therapist, and that they sometimes go on vacation together and stuff like that. That I'm like,
which I find absolutely appalling.
Appalling.
And it's incredibly unethical as far as I'm concerned.
I'm like, no, run away. But this friend is not dealing with the kind of trauma and boundary issues I am. Their challenges are different, right? And it makes my skin crawl. Undeniably, this therapeutic relationship has been very, very helpful and very, very successful.
Okay.
And so I'm willing to admit that maybe I don't know everything, but I think I'm really pretty fucking right about it, but it's fine.
Again, I'm about the ethical side of this, to where I've had clients say, hey, what if we saw you out in public? I said, I will not acknowledge your existence.
First of all, that's HIPAA, right? You're not.
Yeah, the one that's HIPAA, and two, it's like if you're out with friends and I see you, I'm going to look the other way. It's your choice to approach me.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, it's your choice to approach me. I'll be cordial. I'll be polite. I'm not going to make small talk with you, because if you're with somebody, I don't think it's right for me to sit there and go, hi, I'm outing you. I'm your therapist.
Yeah, there's the HIPAA violation, right?
Yeah.
Like, you going up to them is a violation of HIPAA, because you're basically outing their private medical information that they see a therapist, right? But when them coming to you, it's in their that's in their power, that's in their purview.
Yep.
But it's also weird.
A little bit.
It's weird. It's weird and it's uncomfortable, which goes back to the artificiality of the relationship. But by its artificial nature, that's what allows it to be so helpful, because you can have this strong, accelerated intimacy. You can go from 0 to, I've never told anybody this story with this therapist, because without a doubt, these firm fucking boundaries. There really is confidentiality here. This really is a safe space, right? Like, they're not talking about you. You're not talking about you. This never can come back to anybody else, right?
Right. And like for me, I'm a short-term therapist. I'm 15 sessions or less.
Okay. So what's the difference between a short-term, medium-term, and long-term? Like
a lot of the stuff I do is cognitive behavioral dialectical, and I'm using all the jargon. But what I'm doing is, say if you're working through a depression cycle, an anxiety cycle, or a PTSD cycle, I'm here to give you tools to work your way through that. And if I believe that you need further help, I'm going to make a recommendation to a therapist specifically for your challenge. Like, if you have someone that's dealing with an excessive amount of trauma, I'm going to recommend you to an EMDR therapist. I'm going to recommend you to a trauma narrative therapist, what have you.
Right. For all you therapy nerds out there, EMDR stands for something involving rapid eye movement, but it is a very proven way in which to alleviate specific traumatic events. But there we go. That's all I know about. There you go. There's my therapy nerddom.
Yes, and as the type of therapist I am, I tell everyone, I'm your guide through this. I am not here to fix you.
Therapists don't fix you. I think that is also something that's worth knowing. They're not there to fix you, and that is sometimes enraging.
Right.
But they're guides. That's actually a really good way of putting it. They're guides.
Yeah. It's like I said, I'm your mental health guide through this. I'm here to help you. I'm here to offer tools.
My homie riding shotgun, so to speak, right?
I'm not sitting here I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you suggestions, and if you choose to follow them, this is where it's up to you. Because we're getting to a point that Bonnie and I were talking about previously. If you're going into therapy, be honest with yourself why you're going into therapy.
Well, because my girlfriend made me to. going back to our original idea, right? My girlfriend said she'd leave me unless I came into therapy. Oh, okay. Well, I feel like that's a starting point. That's a very honest starting point.
That's a very valid and honest starting point.
I mean,
so why do you think your girlfriend told you to go to therapy?
Thus the conversation begins, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that may be the way in which to tell a partner that they need to go to therapy in the non-accusatory Bonnie way. Honestly, think about it. Like, okay, I'm just going to play this out. Like, I have a role play idea, right? Imagine where, these are two people, you've been in a relationship for a while, you love each other, but man, all you're fucking doing is fighting. And you're fighting about like stupid shit, but like in that stupid shit fight, everything that they've ever done wrong comes out, when they refuse to put the kitchen towels back in the fucking kitchen, it becomes emblematic of how they never pay attention to you, right? They never care about...
You put the salt behind the pepper. Oh my God, our relationship is over.
Well, but this is just how you never pay attention to me, ever. You never do anything I want to do, right? Like a small thing becomes emblematic of a large thing.
Trigger,
right? That a way in which to approach that maybe we need to go to couples counseling. I also feel like that's actually not a bad intro. Yay,
that's not
couples
a bad
counseling.
Intro.
But the second thing is like maybe you need to go to
see your own
counselor because I love you, but this isn't working, and I don't know how to make it work. And I feel like making it work involves maybe you wanting it more, or maybe you doing it more. I feel like it's a you problem. All right, I'm back to the accusatory.
You're back to the accusatory. You were doing really well there. You just crashed and burned.
I tried so hard.
You were trying so hard. I was sitting there. Oh my God, she's really. Oh God, fuck, she's not.
All right, mulligan. All right. Let me give him one more shot. Okay.
But again, telling someone you love, you know what? It sounds like you need a lot of help with something. I'm not equipped to help you. I love you. I'll support you. I'll help you get to where you need to go. But I think you need to talk to a professional that can help you with the challenges you're having.
Yes. I mean, that's something I've told to friends of mine who are going through some like real intense shit, right? Like transitioning, gender transition, coming out to partners, right? Getting a fatal diagnosis, right? These are things that as a friend, I'm like, man, I'm here for you. But I also can't be the only person you're talking to about it because I'll get it wrong. And, you can't really afford for me to say something that's going to get it wrong. I think you need a professional that knows what you need to hear. And then I'm your friend who's basically just here to kind of love you and support you through it. But I don't want to be the only one that's the only voice that's in your head. That's too much. I'm going to fail you. And you don't deserve to be failed. You deserve the best.
Right, because friends and loved ones, we want to fix the person, we want to help, we want to do everything we can to take care of our loved one.
Yes.
Or someone we care for. You have that friend out there that's going through a lot of shit, and you just want to be there for them. And you have that inner idea. It's like, I want to fix this. I want to be as helpful as I can. And then you have to take a step back and go, no, I can't. It's like you need to find that objective human being in the room that's going to hear that person and allow them to find the help they need themselves.
Well, and big things, right? Like sorting through childhood trauma, big things like gender transitioning later in life,
sexual assault,
right? These are big things that professionals maybe will, or seeking out a professional will maybe help you heal quicker than doing the John Wayne stoicism, walk it off, Daisy, just put a little bit of dirt on that complex fracture and, see what happens.
Because you're walking around, and I say this, any emotion you have, you're carrying in your head and your heart. You walk around with it. Because if you notice, when you get stressed, where do you start hurting first?
I mean, it changes, right? For me, it's my stomach. Everything happens to my stomach.
Yeah. For some people, it's your stomach. It's your digestive tract. Because we have all those serotonin receptors that go all the way through your digestive system. Sometimes it's in your chest. Get that burning sensation. Oh God, I got chest pain. Oh my God, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Am I having a heart attack? No, you're not. You're having a panic attack.
And panic attacks feel like dying, but they're not.
They're not fatal.
But they feel that way.
Because it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it's like you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, your mind's racing 900 miles an hour and you have a migraine.
Mm-hmm.
You have stuff that you're carrying with you need to get out. And telling a partner that, sometimes it's hurtful but it's also you're doing the best you can for that partner.
Okay, so let me try again. Let me try again the role play of how to tell a partner they need to go to get therapy that's not in a Bonnie way. All right, here we go. All right, so we've been having a rough time, right? We've been having a real rough time. And I can see that you are in pain. And I don't know how to fix that pain. I don't know how to help it. But I want you to not be in pain. And I think our relationship kind of needs both of us to not live this way. You know, you don't have to, like, life doesn't have to involve, like, constant pain. It doesn't have to be this hard. I would love for you to find help, somebody who can help, because I feel like I'm failing you. And I feel like we're just moving further apart.
That was really good.
Because you're in such pain. Was that good?
That was really good.
Yay, I'm not about
That was really good.
Okay.
You're not sitting there like pushing him down a flight of stairs going, you gotta see therapist.
Okay. All right. So, okay.
That
okay.
was really
that was good. Right.
And also be compassionate, because everyone in this life has been through something that they carry with them. If you're saying you don't, you're lying.
Yes. No, I mean, this life thing is fatal. Nobody makes it out alive, and nobody gets through it unscathed. Not even Elon Musk.
And also for our listeners out there that might have had this discussion, take a step back and realize that it's okay to ask for help. It's absolutely okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not fatal.
I feel like it is at this stage in our life, right? At this over 40 stage of our life, asking for help is the adult fucking thing to do.
Yeah. Own your stuff.
Going to therapy when you realize you're making this, this is why I say big, I was like, this is the best thing about therapy, right? Go to therapy so that you can stop making the same old mistakes that you made as a child and that your parents made. You stop making all the legacy mistakes, and therapy will help you be free to make new and different mistakes. That's the best of life.
Exactly. You can move forward and go, oh, my relationship sucks. You know what? I'm going to go to therapy for this.
Yeah. I
can make new mistakes now.
Exactly. I want to fuck up the next relationship differently than I fucked up the last 5. And, but there's something weirdly freeing in that, right? There is, right? Therapy is not a guarantee that you're going to win life or fix life, whatever the fuck that means. The idea is to just, do you want something to change?
Yeah.
Do you want things to be different?
Yeah. You wake up every day doing the same thing and having the same reactions to things, realizing you're sad, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're stressed. You're going through all these negative feelings on a daily basis, and you're holding them in. And you expect tomorrow to be different.
Or you're dating the same kind of person over and over and over again, right? You're running into the same, you're dating the same unemployed musician. Sorry, guys. But it's running into the same fight. It's running into the same breakup that, it's happening over and over again.
You're chasing the same type of partner over and over and over again.
And you don't know how to stop, right? You don't know how to make, you want differently. You want somebody who cares about you and is more on your kind of like emotional life journey, but you're not quite sure how, right? Because it just seems to, like, you walk into that room and you find the unemployed musician in the corner. Hey, baby. And that seems to be the only person who sees you and the only person you're looking at. And you're like,
it's like I saw a meme the other day that just made me giggle, and I shared it with a few people, but it's like, oh, you smell like booze and poor life decisions. Come sit next to me.
Come sit next to me. Yes. Yes. Okay, so.
Because, again, you realize you're making different decisions once you get to talk to someone. And once you open up and realize this is not a fatal act.
All right. So you can't, maybe it's uncomfortable question time. So I've got a for you counselor question, but you get to go first. Oh, then I get to go mine first. Because Blake's like, I don't have one. I'm like, well, then mine first. I realized,
go ahead.
Because I thought this could fit into our conversation, but I think it's better to make it as an uncomfortable question, being like, okay, Blake, I need you to role play telling me that I need to go into therapy, or telling your last relationship that they needed to go to therapy, because I know that she was very anti-therapy. I mean, you want to do a replay of that fucking thing? What if you could go back, how would you say it? I know that's unfair, but it's a good fucking uncomfortable question.
Several months later.
It's a really good uncomfortable question. I would approach it much differently than I did, which was again, much like Bonnie was a therapy pusher, I kind of was too.
which I'm recognizing through this whole conversation is kind of condescending.
Yeah. It's very condescending, especially.
A bit smug and condescending.
Yes. Smug and condescending.
And pathologizing. And not particularly compassionate.
And not helpful.
Yeah.
Not helpful at all. Closer to the end of our relationship, like I would make recommendations of, you're going through a lot of things that I can't help with, that I can't be objective about because I'm emotionally involved with you. Like, forget all my counselor training, forget all my education. I am personally involved with you. My emotions are enmeshed with yours. And what's happening now isn't healthy for either one of us. Both of us need help. Both of us need someone to talk to help get us through this. It could be couples counseling. It could be individual counseling. It could be both. But there needs to be a professional adult in the room that can help us through this.
To help you get back to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, babe, but thanks for saying that. That was, thanks for doing that.
No worries.
Well, you got to staring at me. That was unfair, but that was a genuine, uncomfortable question.
No,
sorry.
that was a genuine, uncomfortable question. Again, no mulligans.
No mulligans.
No mulligans. Because I could have handled things a lot differently, and I didn't because I was also going through my own emotional shit at the time.
Yeah.
And I was so immersed in it, I couldn't see the forest for the trees.
And I think you were her first experience with anybody who'd been in therapy. And you were, hey, a therapist. So I feel like that, I think she maybe thought that was a hole in one. And, Blake and I have had friends who have said straight to my face that, they don't have to be in therapy because A, their girlfriend's a therapy and Blake's their friend. And I'm like, that is not the same fucking thing, dude.
No, it's not.
That's a really abusive thing to ask of your girlfriend and your fucking friend. Because, Blake is a therapist professionally, but that is not his job in every relationship
That's not
in
my
his
identity.
life.
Because for all of you that do know me outside of my profession, I'm kind of a heathen.
You are, and you're very conflict averse in interpersonal relationships, I must say, and that works out for me. Just saying.
Yes, Bonnie's helping me be the mean one.
I'm totally digging that. Thank you. Allows me to get
welcome.
my way all the time, except not all the time, but
Okay, so I do have an uncomfortable question for you.
All right.
When you've tried to recommend therapy to someone, how did it end?
I mean, you were there for some of it. I will say that it's not like I bring up therapy out of the blue. Usually in conversation with a friend and, we're talking about some real heavy shit. And, let me back up a little bit. The one thing I feel like I can offer people in my life is that nothing you can tell me about anything you've lived through is going to be too much for me. I'm not going to be scared off. I'm not going to run off. Your trauma is not too much for me. Trust me. I have had enough people in my life that just the barest hint of my trauma makes them run. And, I can hear your story and I can hold your story and I can hold space for your story. And so I tend to have or be one of the first people that friends, lovers, you shared, I think I maybe was the first person you shared some of the stories about being a narc with. Right? It's something I am privileged to do for my friends and people I love. And so I'm usually the first person or one of the first people that hears a story of trauma. And so usually at that moment, I kind of validate their experience and validate that it was real and serious. And that they've been amazingly strong in dealing with it this long and by themselves. But I just kind of try to share to them what I've learned is that it doesn't have to be this painful. Life doesn't have to be just straight pain, or what I thought for a long time. Life isn't just those moments in between suicidal depressions, right? Those brief weeks between suicidal depressions. That is not a real life. That is, it can be different. And the way it is different is help, right? Professional help. I can only be me, and I'm human, and I'm flawed, and as we all know, apparently kind of aggressive, smug, and condescending at times, which means I'm going to fail you if I'm the only person that holds this story and helps you with this story. And so that's usually when I first start bringing in the idea of therapy, is in those moments of disclosure and those moments of intimacy and vulnerability. And I think as I do kind of feel like sometimes there's a willful ignorance at times. And this is trauma. I understand trauma, right? That with that first disclosure comes a great retraction. I do see the pattern. I do see that that's what happens. They just, back off. Or that was enough. I'm fine, right? One other person on the planet knows that this happened to me, and that's all that's required for me to be okay, and I start kind of being a little bit more pushy at that point, being like, no, you don't have to live off of crumbs. That is a crumb of a connection with humanity, right? I'm just a crumb of comfort and compassion. You deserve the feast of human emotions and human compassion, human understanding. And I think the only way you'll be able to allow yourself to feel those things is if you seek help. You get a professional that can hold some space for you consistently, regularly, and that makes a difference. When you have big, huge U-Hauls full of fucking issues, those demons that you're dragging around in that goddamn U-Haul, they will eat you alive unless they know that you are spending 45 minutes an hour a week dealing with them. Because the reason they want to kill you is because you're ignoring them, right? Or you're running from them, or you keep running from them, right? That you keep pretending they're not real, or you keep pretending that they're done. You keep ignoring them, right? But demons are quite negotiable if you say, hey, all right, I will give you 45 minutes a week that I will deal with you, and I will deal with you with a responsible adult in the room. And frankly, that's the only way you deal with a U-Haul full of fucking demons. And I start getting a little bit more aggressive when people who have privileged me with being one of their first people to hold space with start to make me their only person that holds space with. And they start getting quite possessive and aggressive of my time and attention because I am their only human on the planet that knows their truth. And they want me all the time. They want that feeling all the time. And they get mad at me and they get very mean to me because I won't be that person to them all the fucking time. And they don't actually recognize that
you can't be.
That can't be. And that's,
you can't be.
And that's a really shitty thing to ask of your friend, man. And I'm their friend. I'm not their therapist. And the reason they feel so thirsty and the reason they feel so hungry is because they've basically been living like an emotional anorexic for their whole life. And I can't help them not. I don't know how to help them learn to eat. I can't help them learn, but a therapist can. And so I start getting kind of angry, condescending, and aggressive when we're having that fight. When they, my friends whom I love, but I'm the only human on the fucking planet that holds their story for them. And I've been the only human on the fucking planet that's held their story for them for decades now. And they call me a therapy pusher, and they tell me that I'm just, that therapy works for me, but I'm, some sort of like soft sissy who believes in that thing. I'm a New York sissy, Jew or whatever kind of thing they want to throw out about me, that they tell themselves how therapy couldn't possibly work for them, even though they're a little way too chicken shit to even try. That's when I get nasty. Sorry, you were there, right? Like, you're a fucking therapist, Blake, and you were just kept arguing with me about how, no, you're fine. Because you're a fucking therapist. I'm like, you are so not fine. You are so not fine. And you demanding that I sit there and watch you be not fine felt unfair.
It was unfair. Absolutely unfair.
And it was mean because I love you and I don't like to watch you drown in self-loathing and then be told that I'm a fucking therapy pusher. I know exactly how hard it is. I do fucking know exactly how hard it is to face down your demons. I do. To dance with your demons, to sometimes let them kick your ass, right? This shit ain't easy. But there's not a shortcut through it.
No, there's not.
You can't think your way through it. You can't think your way around the feelings. You can't read enough philosophy books to philosophize your way around the fucking feelings. You can't drink it away. You can't fuck it away. You can't cocaine it away. You can't overwork it away. The only way is to do the fucking shitty ass work, which involves talking to an intimate stranger that you pay for 45 minutes a week so that your demons stop eating you alive because they know they're going to get your attention 45 minutes a week. And the only way through is the work. And that is when I usually get aggressive and nasty. Now that I'm understanding the patterns, now that I'm replaying the role playing in it, sorry. You know, that's not, to be fair, that aggressive, you need to go to fucking therapy kind of Bonnie is not my opening line about therapy. That's not the first time therapy's come up in our relationship. I guarantee it.
Right.
It's usually close to the end, right? Where it's your, the friend's inability to, or, willful insistence on not dealing with their shit and insisting that I help them deal with their shit, or I'm the only one. I get very upset when I'm the only one, right? I'm the only one who could possibly understand. I'm the only one who fucking knows. I'm the only one. I'm their secret. I'm their secret superpower. I hate that. That is very, very triggering for me.
And that's very unfair to you.
Yes, and it's very, very triggering for me. If I'm the only one who can help you, if I'm the only one who understands, if I'm the only one, if I'm the only special, unique fucking snowflake that can possibly understand your pain, no, that's bad for me. Then you are becoming my father. And people who love me do not want to be my father in my fucking life. And I don't want my father in my fucking life. I want better friends than that. I want better people than that.
Right on.
Did I come off sounding like less of an asshole now?
You don't sound like an asshole. You don't. As much as you want to think you do.
Well, I mean, I've been called a therapy pusher enough and had that fight enough, but it's usually the last fight. It's not the first one.
Right.
I know.
And I spent all of COVID in therapy.
I'm proud of you. That was hard as fuck.
Yeah. I knew. In the back of my head, I needed it.
Well, but that doesn't mean most people who even know they need it, that doesn't mean they actually go, put on the big girl pants and actually go and do it.
Yeah, realize it. It's and my therapist specialized in therapists, so she doesn't put up with any of our shit.
You finally found a therapist that you couldn't bully. I've also had friends that read all of the online articles, right? They read all of Psychology Today and a couple of books and feel like they understand every fucking therapy modality. And then they find a therapist that they can kind of out-intellectualize. Remember the friend that refused to go to therapy unless she read all of their PhD dissertations and thought that they were adequate? And I'm like, okay.
Fuck right off.
Fuck right off, right? I'm sorry, I don't think a PhD dissertation is any indication whether somebody's a good therapist or not.
Yeah.
It's whether they can spend 5 years accumulating student loans and write a dissertation. That's
Awesome.
what that proves.
Okay, I have assisted on journal articles. Great, you want to read it?
But they do it as a way to intellectualize and dominate and control and power, right? And it's all defenses against being vulnerable.
Yeah. And on a note on that, leave your fucking ego at the door.
I mean, that's harder to do than it sounds like, right? Sometimes you need help doing that.
Sometimes you do need help doing that. But after a while, you are cycling into, you're basically, I'm paying somebody to an hour to lie to or abuse.
Yeah. I just paid $190 an hour to lie to somebody and have them believe my lies. Go me.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, if you're going in that room, be honest. You need help finding a therapist. There are tools out there.
There really are. And just keep at it, right? There's not, I hate to say this, there's not just one therapist out there for you. I have had, dear Lord, how many therapists have I had in my life? 9.
I've had a few.
I've had 9, but I've had my most recent one. She and I have been together, man, math is hard. She and I have been together 15 years. Wow. And, sometimes you find one that fits and that clicks. But keep looking. And every therapist I've had, I learned something from, and I'm grateful too.
And I told Bonnie this earlier when we were discussing this topic. As long as I'm a practicing therapist, I'm going to have a therapist.
Yeah, you said that, and that makes sense actually for therapists to have their own therapist because that's some heavy shit.
Yeah, I hear some shit, and I also need to deal with my shit.
Yes, and you need to make sure that your shit does not show up in somebody else's therapy session.
Exactly. And if you have a therapist and their shit shows up in your therapy session, 1, report them. 2, find a new therapist.
Yes, which is why some of those bad boundary therapists in Texas can't make my skin crawl. But
if someone needs help out there, I'm not fishing for business. You need help, email us.
Yes.
I will send you links. I will send you referrals.
Yes.
And happily do it with a smile.
Confidentially.
Won't tell anybody.
Blake and I are the only ones that look at that email. info@drinkingwithyourx.com. It is as private as one can get with a nationally and globally published podcast. Maybe we should rethink that that thing. I don't know if we've thought this thing.
But again, like if you're looking for a therapist, I recommend Psychology Today. Go through your insurance, call your insurance company. They have referrals as well.
And just keep at it.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Do not be afraid to talk about it because you are not alone.
Aw. I feel bad that I talk shit about you now. You're so sweet.
Ladies and gentlemen, that opinion will change soon. Just wait till our next introduction.
Exactly.
All right.
I mean, thanks for being on this journey. I feel like we kind of rambled and went all over the place, but got to some real places towards the end. But I don't know. I'm Bonnie Neal.
I'm Blake Thompson. It's time for a refill.